Our state attorney General Cynthia Coffman with a few late-breaking and really important lawsuits. You represent the people of Colorado, not just the government of Colorado, but you're the state's lawyer. So you're my lawyer.
I am.
Right. Which, and by the way, you didn't do a very good job in my divorce. So it was very awful. No, you don't do that kind of law. You are a state's lawyer, and you have to decide on a lot of different lawsuits on the federal level. I wanted to talk to you particularly about Bureau of Land Management. This is the federal government coming into Colorado, telling Colorado how to do oil and gas. Tell me a little bit about this. What is this issue?
The Bureau of Land Management in March passed its own set of rules on hydraulic fracturing. And so they are attempting to govern the fracking that occurs on federal property or that deals with underground oil and gas that belongs to the federal government. So they came up with their own set of regulations.
Just for BLM land, because there's so many different federal lands. You have forests, you have parks, you have BLM, there's all reserves, there are all sorts of things. And so one little part says, all right, here are our new rules if you want to do drilling here. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. I keep hearing Colorado has the toughest fracking regs in the country, but yet the feds are going to come in here and tell us what to do on this land.
And that's the irony. The BLM has acknowledged that in some ways they based their new fracking rules on Colorado's because we are the leader in regulation of oil and gas development. But at the same time, they wanted their own set of rules that's just a little bit different. And that's going to complicate things for people who do oil and gas development.
Why would that be a problem?
They have to go through two permitting processes, one that follows Colorado's rules, one that follows the federal government's rules. Colorado is much faster at granting a permit than the federal government is. And we consider this just another potential hamper to getting oil and gas development and money in Colorado. Colorado's done a great job with its own regulation of fracturing and balancing local interests and having a safe and highly regulated, but certainly economically sound.
The action you're taking, you're not taking alone. What is the action, and what do you hope to happen with it?
We have been in federal court with North Dakota, Wyoming, and Utah, several of the Native American tribes.
These are your allies.
These are our allies, contesting the federal government's authority to adopt these rules. We won a preliminary stay in the court in North Dakota a couple of weeks ago, and the judge said, I think I have serious questions about what BLM has done in its rules, the fact that it doesn't seem to have calculated cost, and I want to look at the administrative record. So we had a victory for the people of Colorado.
All right, so again, this wasn't a law. I don't think people get the difference. The law is Congress puts in a law saying these will be the fracking regulations of federal land. This was a rule. So one department of one part of the federal government decided, oh, why don't we make our own rules? And so with your help, all these other states are coming together and making this happen.
And we're arguing that inside our state boundaries, we should be able to set the rules.
What do you say to people who are critical of oil and gas, particularly fracturing, that if there's another permit and more complications and it makes it harder for anybody to frack in Colorado, this is a good thing?
And I would say to them, look at the impact on the economy and on Colorado families. It's not a good thing for us. And
the rules we have are tougher than what the BLM are doing. This is just bureaucracy.
They're adding a layer of bureaucracy and expense.
Let me go on to something else, and this one's blowing my mind. Let me see if I got this right. WOTUS, which stands for Waters
of the United States.
Waters of the United States. All right, what is a water of the United States?
Well, under the Clean Water Act, it's always been defined as a navigable water. But the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers just put out new rules that expand the definition of what a navigable water is. And believe it or not, it would include a pond in a rancher's farmland.
When I hear navigable water, I'm thinking old school. I'm thinking, the Potomac. All right, we're going to send ships up and down the Potomac because we don't have highways. We get the Mississippi. This is the big thing. This is our waterway. This is how we, before planes, trains, automobiles, and trucks. This is how we got around, and so these waterways that are navigable. This is what I'm thinking. Maybe even canals where ships go up and down between states. And so there is some sort of interstate commerce aspect of these waterways, right? That's why it's a federal thing,
yes,
right?
That's exactly right.
And how are they changing this?
Well, and twice the EPA has been told no when it tried to expand the definition of what a navigable water is, but they're coming at it again. And they're saying that even rainwater that runs through a ditch can be a navigable water of the United States if it's within a certain distance of a tributary to a navigable water. I know it is just as perplexing as your facial expression makes it seem.
So in order for the feds to be able to regulate this stuff, it has to be navigable. And so if you could put one of those kids' boats on it and drive it up, then they're going to say it's navigable. This is an EPA push to get into other areas, into Colorado.
It is.
What is their motivation?
That's a good question, but I think what is important is their method, and their motivation is less important because what they're going to do is take over property that belongs to landowners in Colorado and try to govern water that doesn't leave the state of Colorado. They did accept puddles, though. You'll be happy to know there is a specific exemption for a puddle.
So the puddle on my street, they're not going to regulate.
Not that.
Not that one. But the ditch behind somebody's house that might find its way into the Platte,
yes,
eventually, now they're going to regulate that as well.
That's the premise.
All right. What do you want to do about this? What are you doing about this?
Along with 22 other states, we have sued the federal government. Our lawsuit is with a number of the western states that share these common interests.
22?
23 total.
23.
Have sued, and I expect some others will get in on the action, but we are...
On what ground? I mean, what is it that they're doing wrong that you're going to say this, you can't do this?
Our argument is that the Clean Water Act was never intended to extend this far. And this is an overreach by the federal government, which is something that we have seen the Obama administration do over and over again. This just happens to be one of the most egregious overreaches that we've seen. And so we'll be fighting that. I will on behalf of Colorado.
It's one of those things I would never think of. All right, the federal government is so vast and has regulatory powers. Again, not from the law, but because their own lawmakers, their own rule makers inside these bureaucracies decide to do it. Is it like fighting with a hydra that every time you chop off a head, they find 5 more ways to get in right down to little streams and ditches? That this is a federal issue. It's not a Colorado issue. This is Colorado water that runs on a Colorado ditch and never leaves Colorado. It goes to a pond, and
Exactly.
they're going to. And what do they want power to do with that?
I suspect that they want power to regulate the land on which the water flows. I think that is the ultimate goal.
How many more of these suits do you feel coming? Maybe not suits are the right word, but that states and state AGs, and you're working with 20-some of them, are banding together more and more often to fight for the state's rights not to be regulated through the executive branch.
I would project we'll see quite a few more of these lawsuits in the next 3 years, especially since President Obama has telegraphed to us that as part of his climate change policy, he's planning on putting out new rules under the Clean Air Act.
Let me ask you about this one. Again, the EPA is going to try to do a war on coal, which is the primary electrical source here in Colorado, and they're going to say, this is now a federal issue. So if you states don't do what we want, we'll just use the EPA.
Exactly, and that's what is coming next.
What's likely to happen? Foreshadow this one for me.
Well, several states have already begun a legal challenge. They were told by the United States Supreme Court that they were getting into court too early But the rule on the coal-fired power plants is expected to come out in August. And then I think you'll see many more of us states joining together.
So you really can't make a decision on this until you see what these what the rules are.
Exactly.
Right.
We need a final rule.
What's your sense? Come on, look at your crystal ball for me. You know what these rules are likely going to be.
Well, if it's...
Can I expect you and other AGs around the country to stand up and go, you have no authority to do this. You want authority, go to Congress, get the authority before you do this.
If it's anything like waters of the United States, the final rule will actually be worse than the proposed rule, will be more prescriptive and onerous on the states, and we'll all be in court again.
Less than a minute. Let me ask you one quick one. We talked about it earlier in the program about the Tabor lawsuit called the Kerr v. Hickenlooper one, where the Supreme Court basically said, nice try, sent it back and said, not going to happen. This was your predecessor, and you put up this fight. How do you feel about it? I mean, this was, you defended Tabor, Jon Suthers defended Tabor, and it now stands from this federal assault.
I feel very good about what the Supreme Court did. They did something called grant, vacate, and remand. It's sort of an unusual procedural thing to do, but they sent the case back to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals saying there's a high likelihood you got it wrong.
Yeah, there's a nice try. Save some face, change it yourself. Cynthia, thank you so much. Thank you. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Check out the Independence Institute. That's independenceinstitute.org. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.